The crystalline spires of Centauri Prime glittered like frozen flames against the violet sky as Ambassador Sarah Chen's shuttle made its final approach to the Galactic Council headquarters. Through the viewport, 3 suns cast overlapping shadows across the landing platform, where a delegation of the galaxy's most powerful species waited to greet Earth's first permanent representative to the Council. Sarah adjusted her formal diplomatic robes, dark eyes reflecting the alien landscape before her. 10 years of negotiations had led to this moment, humanity's official entrance into galactic politics. The shuttle's neural interface pinged softly, indicating a final security sweep. Everything was precisely as it should be, down to the last molecule. Among the waiting delegates, High Counselor Vextari of the Arcturian Dominion watched the approaching human vessel with his primary eyes while his secondary set monitored the hidden energy signatures of various weapon systems tracking the shuttle's descent. The human female's credentials were impeccable, perhaps too impeccable. "Are we certain about this course of action, High Counselor?" Subdelegate Kren whispered, his crystalline appendages vibrating with anxiety. "The humans have proven surprisingly resilient in recent conflicts." Vextari's outer membrane rippled in what passed for amusement among his kind. "They send us a diplomat, one small female, while their fleets remain bound by the Arcturus Treaty. What possible threat could she pose to the combined might of the Galactic Council?" The shuttle touched down with practiced precision, its stealth systems powering down in a show of diplomatic transparency. Sarah emerged, her movements fluid and measured, showing no sign that the platform's gravity was calibrated slightly higher than Earth's standard, a small psychological ploy that went unnoticed. "Ambassador Chin," Vextari announced, spreading his upper limbs in the traditional greeting. "The Galactic Council welcomes Earth's first permanent representative." Sarah bowed precisely 45 degrees, deep enough to show respect, shallow enough to maintain dignity. "High Counselor, Earth is honored to take its place among the stars." Her universal translator rendered her words in perfect galactic standard, though she spoke several council languages fluently. As the delegation led her toward the towering council chamber, hidden scanners probed her body and belongings, finding exactly what her diplomatic credentials claimed, no more, no less. Had they possessed the right sensors, they might have detected the nanites flowing through her bloodstream, or the quantum-encrypted neural augments that made her brain as much computer as organic matter. But they didn't, and that was precisely as Earth's Security Council had planned. Inside the vast chamber, representatives from over 300 spacefaring civilizations occupied their designated pods. The architecture itself was a display of power, each pod positioned according to their species' influence and military might. Earth's pod was near the bottom, befitting their status as newcomers. "We have reviewed your credentials extensively," Ambassador Chin, Council Speaker Mirabex announced, her bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with subtle patterns. "Your background as a xenoanthropologist and your role in the Proxima Centauri Peace Accords make you uniquely qualified." Sarah inclined her head, noting the slight emphasis on uniquely. They'd investigated her background thoroughly, finding exactly what had been planted for them to find. "I look forward to fostering understanding between our peoples." In his private pod, Delegate Jur of the Capellan Imperium accessed classified files on human physiology. "Their bodies are remarkably inefficient," he subvocalized to his conspirators. "Water-based, carbon-dependent, requiring constant atmospheric adjustments. Their ships are equally primitive," another voice added through the secure channel. "Barely a century of faster-than-light travel. Their children playing at civilization." Sarah took her assigned seat, activating the pod's interfaces with practiced ease. As data streams filled her vision, her augments began their real work, sifting through layers of encrypted council communications, mapping power structures, identifying potential threats. The humans they thought they were dealing with hadn't existed for decades. Earth had learned harsh lessons from its first contact wars. High Counselor Vextari raised his primary limbs, beginning the formal induction ceremony. "Let it be recorded that on this day, the species known as humanity joins the Galactic Council as provisional members, subject to all rights and restrictions thereof." Sarah smiled diplomatically as the ceremony proceeded, her enhanced mind simultaneously processing the subtle power plays unfolding around her. They thought Earth was sending a diplomat to submit to their authority. They had no idea they were welcoming a wolf into their fold. In the shadows of the council chamber, ancient species who had ruled the stars for millennia continued plotting against the youngest spacefaring race. They didn't realize that every conspiracy, every hidden message, every secret meeting was being logged, analyzed, and transmitted back to Earth's defense networks. They would learn, soon enough, why humanity's enemies had taken to calling their special operators shadows. But for now, Ambassador Sarah Chen simply smiled, played her role, and waited. The game was just beginning. 3 standard months into her ambassadorial duties, Sarah Chen stood in the Grand Observatory of Centauri Prime, appearing to admire the spectacular view of colliding nebulae while actually monitoring the movement patterns of the gathered diplomats. The annual Concordance Gala was the Council's premier diplomatic event, and the perfect staging ground for what she knew was coming. Ambassador Chen, purred High Counselor Vextari, approaching with a crystalline glass of bioluminescent liquid. You've made quite an impression these past months. Several trading consortiums have expressed interest in expanding their operations to Earth space. Sarah accepted the offered drink with a practiced smile. Her nanites were already analyzing its contents through her skin contact. Earth welcomes peaceful commerce, High Counselor. Though I admit, some of the proposed terms have been ambitious. Across the chamber, Delegate Jur was speaking with a group of Predaxian merchants, his secondary breathing apparatus slightly out of sync, a tell that Sarah's enhanced senses had catalogued as indicating stress or anticipation. The neural network in her brain calculated a 92% probability that the attack would come within the next 17 minutes. Ambitious? Vextari's outer membrane rippled. Perhaps you find our ways overwhelming. Many younger species do at first. On the contrary, Sarah sipped her drink, her nanites neutralizing the 3 different neurotoxins hidden within it. I find the Council's methods quite traditional. The slight emphasis on traditional made Vextari's secondary eyes narrow. Before he could respond, Subdelegate Kren approached with obvious urgency. High Counselor, your presence is required in the security chamber. Sarah watched them leave, her augmented vision tracking the subtle hand signals exchanged between various delegates. The quantum processor embedded in her cerebral cortex was already decrypting their emergency communications. They were moving earlier than expected. The chamber's atmospheric controls shifted imperceptibly to normal humans at least. Sarah's lungs automatically adjusted to the changing gas mixture. Around her, other delegates began moving toward the exits with studied casualness. Ambassador, Council Speaker Miravex glided forward, her bioluminescent patterns displaying carefully crafted concern. I believe the observation deck would offer an even better view of the stellar phenomenon. A classic misdirection. Isolate the target before striking. Sarah smiled warmly. Lead the way, Speaker. I've been hoping to discuss the recent border disputes in the Carina sector. As they moved through the crystalline corridors, Sarah's internal systems counted down. The observation deck would be sealed, its atmospheric controls reprogrammed. They'd make it look like an unfortunate malfunction, tragic, but not entirely unexpected given humanity's primitive, environmental requirements. The door to the observation deck whispered open. Sarah noted the subtle shimmer of newly installed force fields, the microscopic delivery ports for paralytic agents now hidden in the walls. They'd planned this well, she had to admit. A shame, she said quietly, that we couldn't have done this the easy way. Miravex turned, her tentacles frozen mid-pulse. I'm sorry. No, you're not. Not yet. Sarah's diplomatic robes shifted, the supposedly decorative patterns rearranging themselves into combat configuration. But you will be. The chamber's doors slammed shut as atmospheric alarms began blaring. Mirax's bioluminescence flared in triumph, then faltered as she realized Sarah was still breathing normally. Interesting mix of toxins, Sarah commented, her voice now carrying the flat tone of activated combat systems. Specifically targeted to human biology. You studied us very thoroughly. How? Mira-XS communication patterns shifted to emergency frequencies, only to find them blocked. Did you really think Earth would send an unmodified human to negotiate with species that have been conducting interstellar diplomacy since we were learning to make fire? Sarah's eyes now glowed with the internal light of activated combat protocols. We're young, not stupid. Throughout the Council complex, communication systems began failing in cascading patterns. Security forces responding to the observation deck found their weapons unresponsive, their armor systems locked down. In the main security center, High Counselor Vextari watched in mounting horror as every screen displayed the same message: diplomatic protocols violated. Initiating appropriate response. What are you? Mira-X demanded, her tentacles coiling in defensive patterns. Sarah's smile remained diplomatic, but her eyes were pure predator now. I'm exactly what my credentials say, Earth's representative. You just made some incorrect assumptions about what that means. The quantum processors in her brain had already transmitted everything back to Earth through channels the Council's best technicians couldn't even detect, let alone block. The response would come soon enough. But first, she had some conspirators to round up. Now then, she said, her robes now fully reconfigured into tactical gear that made Mira-XS species recognition protocols scream warnings. Let's discuss those border disputes. I believe you'll find Earth's position has evolved. The Galactic Council was about to learn why humanity's enemies called their special operators shadows, and why those enemies never survived to spread the warning. The Galactic Council's emergency session dissolved into chaos as Ambassador Chen's holoprojection appeared simultaneously in every delegation pod. Behind her, Mira-X and 3 other council leaders sat bound by fields of shimmering energy, their attempts at communication reduced to primitive light signals. By now, Sarah's voice echoed through the chamber. You've discovered that your emergency protocols have been compromised. Your weapons systems are locked. Your communications are restricted to local channels. Your automated defenses. She paused, allowing them to hear the distant sound of deactivating security grids, are no longer yours to command. High Counselor Vextari's outer membrane rippled with rage. This is an act of war. Your primitive planet cannot hope to. War? Sarah's laugh carried no humor. If Earth wanted war, your civilization would have crumbled months ago. I've had access to your core system since the day I arrived. The override codes for your planetary defense grid have been in my possession for 11 standard weeks. In the shadows of the Council chamber, hidden operators from various species tried to activate failsafe protocols, only to find their neural interfaces blocked. Some of the older delegates recognized the growing terror in the room. They'd felt it before, during the first contact wars, when humanity had first demonstrated their ability to adapt and overcome seemingly insurmountable technological gaps. What you're experiencing, Sarah continued, her diplomatic smile never wavering, is consequences. My neural archives contain evidence of 17 separate conspiracies against Earth's interests. 8 assassination attempts planned against various human diplomats. 5 unauthorized incursions into Earth space. She gestured, and holographic data streams filled the chamber, showing encrypted communications, classified weapons developments, secret meetings. The Council's own security protocols turned against them with surgical precision. Impossible, Delegate Jur whispered. Our quantum encryption was impressive, Sarah acknowledged. For about 6 hours. Then my augments cracked it. Did you really think we'd send an unaugmented human to represent Earth's interests? That we wouldn't learn from our first encounters with your species? Throughout the Council complex, hidden weapons installations began powering down. Classified research facilities found their data cores locked. Emergency beacons attempting to reach military fleets found their signals redirected into void space. Your mistake, Sarah explained, pacing with predatory grace, was assuming that humanity's rapid advancement was random, chaotic. That we simply got lucky in developing technologies that let us compete with your species. Her form flickered, and suddenly she was physically present in the chamber, her diplomatic robes now a seamless combat suit that seemed to drink in light. The nanites in her bloodstream had reconfigured themselves into a defensive matrix that could withstand most energy weapons. We didn't get lucky, she continued, her eyes now glowing with activated combat systems. We adapted. We studied. Every encounter with your species taught us something new. Every attempt to suppress us made us stronger. A Predaxian delegate lunged forward, his crystalline natural weapons deployed. Sarah moved like liquid shadow, and suddenly he was on the ground, his own crystalline structure used to immobilize him. For example, she said, her voice still calm, that particular attack pattern was documented during the Proxima Centauri incident. My combat systems recognized it before your muscles began moving. High Counselor Vextari's primary eyes narrowed. What are your demands? Demands? Sarah's smile turned predatory. I'm not here to make demands. I'm here to educate. You tried to assassinate Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. Now you'll learn why even our enemies warn others not to provoke humanity. Throughout the complex, hidden operators found themselves being systematically hunted by someone who seemed to know their every move before they made it. Security teams discovered their supposedly foolproof containment systems turned into traps. Earth remembers its friends, Sarah announced to the chamber. We also remember those who mistake our diplomacy for weakness. You have one standard hour to transmit full confessions and evidence of your conspiracies against Earth. After that, her form began to fade, leaving only her smile visible for a moment. I start hunting actively. The chamber erupted into panicked activity as species that had dominated space for millennia confronted a truth they'd tried to deny. Humanity hadn't joined the Galactic Council to submit to their authority. They'd joined to ensure it would never threaten them again. High Counselor Vextari watched the chaos unfold, his species' natural fatalism allowing him to appreciate the elegance of their defeat. They'd thought they were dealing with diplomatic prey. Instead, they'd provoked humanity's shadows. The next 12 hours transformed the Galactic Council's headquarters into a living demonstration of human efficiency. Species that had once dismissed Earth as a primitive backwater watched in stunned silence as their carefully constructed power structures crumbled. In the Council's primary data center, the Artaxian chief of security slumped in his gravity chair, all 6 appendages limp with exhaustion. Across every quantum-encrypted display, classified files were being systematically exposed. Weapons programs, secret alliances, forbidden research, all laid bare by human infiltration protocols that somehow existed in their systems long before Ambassador Chen's arrival. Remarkable, isn't it? Sarah's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. How fragile superiority becomes when its foundations are exposed. The Artaxian didn't bother looking for her. 3 security teams had already failed to locate her physical presence. You're destroying centuries of stability, he accused. The Council maintains order across 17,000 systems. Orders built on lies and suppression, Sarah responded, materializing beside him. Her combat suit now rippled with patterns that made his optical sensors ache. We found the quarantine protocols, Chief. The ones designed to isolate Earth if we didn't behave, according to Council standards. Throughout the complex, desperate messages bounced between delegates as they realized the extent of humanity's infiltration. Military-grade encryption crumbled against attack patterns that seemed to anticipate their every defense. Quantum-locked data cores found themselves compromised by exploits that shouldn't have been possible. The Arcturus Treaty, a Meridian delegate demanded during an emergency session, their crystalline form vibrating with stress harmonics. You signed it. Your fleets are bound by its restrictions. Sarah's hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, her smile carrying echoes of predator satisfaction. Oh, that's the beautiful part. We are completely adhering to the treaty. No human warships have entered Council space. No military forces have been deployed. Her form flickered. You never restricted diplomatic assets. In orbit, automated defense platforms began transmitting new recognition protocols. Council warships found their targeting systems refusing to lock onto human signatures. Quantum communication networks that had served the Council for millennia now carried echoes of human code in their foundations. Impossible, the Meridian insisted. Your species only achieved faster-than-light travel a century ago. You cannot have this level of technological integration. A century ago, Sarah corrected, we let you detect our first FTL experiments. We needed to understand how your species would react to our emergence. Her hologram walked through the chamber, passing through solid matter like a ghost. What you detected was carefully staged, a performance to make you underestimate us. High Counselor Vextari, watching from his secured chamber, felt his outer membrane ripple with unwanted admiration. We thought we were studying them, he sub-vocalized to his few remaining allies. All this time, they were studying us. Throughout Council space, hidden research stations studying human technology suddenly found their systems locked down. Black sites developing weapons to use against Earth discovered their data cores wiping themselves. Species that had planned to exploit humanity's primitive technology watched their advantages evaporate. Your civilization spans galaxies, Sarah acknowledged, her voice carrying through every communication channel simultaneously. You have technologies we're still working to understand. But you forgot something crucial about humanity. In the shadows of the council chamber, hidden operators from a dozen species felt their neural implants go dark. Combat-enhanced delegates found their augmentations shutting down. Biomechanical security systems developed over centuries failed against infiltration protocols they couldn't detect. We evolved as persistence predators, Sarah continued, her form now appearing in multiple locations simultaneously. Every failure taught us. Every setback made us adapt. While you saw us as primitive newcomers to be controlled. Her smile turned dangerous. We were learning your weaknesses. The Artaxian chief watched as the last of his security protocols failed. What do you want? He finally asked, his species' legendary composure cracking. Want? Sarah appeared next to him, her combat suit now displaying scrolling data streams of exposed council secrets. We want what we've always wanted, peaceful coexistence. But you chose to treat us as prey. She leaned closer, her augmented eyes reflecting his own image back at him. Now you'll learn why Earth's enemies call us shadows. Why those who survive encountering our operators never make the same mistake twice. Throughout council space, the message was becoming clear. Humanity hadn't joined the Galactic Council seeking admission to their power structure. They joined to ensure it would never threaten them again. And in the darkness between stars, Earth's real capabilities remained hidden, waiting, a shadow within shadows, ready if the Council ever forgot this lesson. The Council's Grand Assembly Hall, once a symbol of galactic unity, now served as the stage for humanity's demonstration of power. As the 48th hour of the crisis began, emergency sessions had devolved into near panic as more revelations emerged. The humans didn't just infiltrate our systems, Delegate Jor announced, his crystalline form dulled with stress. They're in our foundational protocols. Every quantum-encrypted network we've built in the last 50 years has their code embedded in its core. Sarah stood at the center of the chamber, her combat suit now displaying real-time data streams of exposed council operations. Around her, representatives from 300 species watched in growing horror as centuries of careful manipulation unraveled. Did you really think, she asked, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, that humanity would survive first contact with advanced civilizations through luck alone? That we wouldn't prepare for this moment? High Counselor Vextari, his outer membrane now showing stress patterns, faced her directly. How long? How long have you been inside our systems? Since before you knew we existed, Sarah smiled, her augmented eyes tracking multiple threat vectors simultaneously. Those primitive radio signals you detected from Earth? Carefully crafted. The seemingly random progression of our technology? Planned. We needed to understand how you would react to an emerging civilization. Throughout Council space, hidden research facilities studying human technology found their data cores systematically exposed. Black sites developing weapons against Earth discovered their secrets transmitted to every council member simultaneously. Impossible, a Meridian delegate insisted, their crystalline resonance showing panic harmonics. Your species was planet-bound less than 2 centuries ago. No, Sarah corrected, her form flickering as she accessed deeper layers of council security. That's when we let you detect us. We needed to understand the political dynamics of the galaxy. Would you welcome new species? Try to control them? Exploit them? The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Every patronizing assessment of human technology, every dismissive analysis of Earth's capabilities, all based on what humanity had chosen to show them. The Arcturus Treaty, Vextari realized, his primary eyes widening. "We thought we were containing your military expansion. You were signing exactly what we wanted you to sign," Sarah confirmed. A treaty that restricted obvious military forces while saying nothing about diplomatic assets or technological integration. In orbit, Council warships discovered that their most basic operating systems contained human recognition protocols. Quantum communication networks that had served galactic civilization for millennia carried echoes of Earth's influence in their foundations. "Your species spans 3 galaxies," Sarah acknowledged, moving through the chamber like a living shadow. "You have technology we're still working to understand. But you made a fundamental mistake in your assessment of humanity." She gestured, and the chamber's holographic systems displayed a timeline, humanity's apparent technological progression as seen by the Council, contrasted with their actual capabilities. "You saw our adaptation as random, chaotic. You never asked why a species that went from primitive radio to FTL travel in less than a century wasn't more disorganized." Throughout the complex, hidden combat operators found their enhanced systems failing against protocols they couldn't detect. Biomechanical security measures developed over centuries crumbled against infiltration methods that seemed to anticipate their every response. "We evolved as tool users," Sarah continued, her voice carrying undertones of predator satisfaction. "Problem solvers. When we encountered advanced technology, we didn't just copy it, we understood it. Improved it. Made it our own." The chamber's security systems, among the most sophisticated in known space, displayed their true code architecture, human protocols nested so deeply within their foundation that removal would cause total system collapse. "You had a chance," Sarah's tone carried genuine regret. "We wanted peaceful cooperation. Instead, you chose conspiracy. Assassination attempts. Hidden weapons programs." Her smile turned dangerous. "Now you'll understand why Earth's enemies warn others about provoking us." High Counselor Vextari, watching his civilization's carefully constructed superiority crumble, finally asked the question they'd all avoided. "What are your terms?" Sarah's form solidified, her combat suit now displaying scrolling data of Council violations against Earth. "Terms? We're not here to conquer or control. We're here to ensure the Council never threatens Earth again." Her augmented eyes swept the chamber. "The choice is yours. Adapt to a galaxy where humanity is your equal, or continue your conspiracies and learn why our enemies call us shadows." Throughout Council space, the message became clear. Humanity hadn't joined the Galactic Council seeking admission to their power structure. They'd joined to remake it. One standard month after what historians would later call the Shadow Protocol crisis, the Galactic Council reconvened under very different circumstances. The crystalline spires of Centauri Prime still glittered against the violet sky, but the power dynamics within them had been irrevocably altered. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the newly redesigned central podium, her diplomatic robes once again replacing her combat suit. Around her, representatives from 300 species watched with a mixture of respect and carefully concealed fear. "The revised Charter of Galactic Cooperation is now open for ratification," she announced, her voice carrying the same diplomatic tone she'd used since her arrival. "Earth welcomes a new era of genuine collaboration." High Counselor Vextari, now serving in a reduced capacity, observed the proceedings with his primary eyes while his secondary set tracked the subtle changes in the chamber. The hierarchical positioning of delegation pods had been eliminated. Species that had once dominated council politics now sat as equals with those they'd considered primitive. "You've destroyed a system that maintained peace for millennia," he noted during a recess, approaching Sarah in what had once been his private chamber. "Did it?" Sarah turned to him, her augmented eyes now concealed, but no less alert. "Or did it maintain the illusion of peace while powerful species exploited emerging civilizations? How many potential allies did the Council lose to fear and resentment?" Throughout Council space, the changes were already visible. Hidden research stations had been converted to open technological exchange centers. Species that had once hoarded their advancements now found themselves engaging in genuine collaboration, driven by the understanding that isolation meant stagnation. Your species, a Meridian delegate observed, their crystalline form showing curiosity harmonics, could have dominated us completely. Why choose cooperation now? Sarah's smile carried genuine warmth. Because domination was never our goal. Humanity remembers being plan-bound, looking up at the stars and dreaming of what we might find. She gestured to the assembled delegates. We wanted to join a community of equals. When we found a hierarchy instead, we decided to change it. The quantum networks that had once served as tools of control now facilitated open communication. Defense systems that had been aimed at Earth now protected trade routes and scientific expeditions. The Council's vast bureaucracy, stripped of its hidden agendas, began serving its original purpose, fostering cooperation among the stars. There will be resistance, Vextari warned. Some species will not easily abandon their sense of superiority. Of course, Sarah acknowledged. Change is never easy. But they'll adapt. Her eyes met his. Or they'll discover why even our enemies recommend cooperation over conflict. In orbit, Council warships now trained alongside human vessels, their crews learning from each other. The technological gap that many species had relied upon for their sense of superiority had been revealed as largely illusory. Humanity's apparent primitive status had been a carefully maintained facade. Your shadow protocols, a young Artaxian analyst asked during a technical exchange, they're still in our systems, aren't they? Sarah's diplomatic smile never wavered. Think of them as insurance. A reminder that technology alone doesn't determine a species' strength. She watched as human and alien engineers collaborated on new developments. It's the will to adapt, to learn, to overcome challenges that matters. Throughout the Reformed Council, the lesson had been learned. Humanity hadn't needed overwhelming military force or technological superiority to change the galaxy. They'd used patience, adaptation, and the carefully applied thread of capabilities they'd hoped never to reveal. The stars were always meant to unite us, Sarah addressed the final ratification session. Not divide us by artificial hierarchies or hidden agendas. Earth doesn't seek to rule the Council. We seek to help transform it into what it always should have been, a true fellowship of space-faring civilizations. As delegates from 300 species formalized the new charter, the message was clear. The galaxy had changed not through war or conquest, but through the patient, calculated actions of a species that had turned infiltration into an art form. And in the shadows between stars, Earth's true capabilities remained hidden, not as a threat, but as a promise. A reminder that in a galaxy of ancient powers and advanced civilizations, humanity had earned its place not through force, but through adaptation, intelligence, and the willingness to become whatever was necessary to survive and thrive among the stars. The shadows would remain, watching and waiting, ensuring that the lessons of the crisis were not forgotten. But for now, a new dawn had truly begun.